But yes, we've got like 2 minutes. So this is our time to kind of just get people to come and join us a little bit.
It's funny.
Because it's, I see what you're saying though.
Like now he's on my head now. He's cool. We're just gonna ride with that. He's just gonna be my little partner.
They're gonna be like, who was that person climbing the hill? Like,
So this is are you having a good week?
I am. It's been a long week, but grateful because it's been a good week, productive. How about you?
Yes, actually, I love this weather. So the fall is good for me. Like it could stay like this for the rest of the time. I'd be good.
50s and 60s. I'm great.
Yep. We don't need to do anything else. We're good. Summer's done. Let's move on.
It was a little warm today, though.
It was. I was in my house most of the day, but yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we are going to pause for 5 seconds. Hello and welcome to Conversations in the Nick of Time, powered by Sparkman Pathway to Careers and KSTL 690 AM, headquartered here in St. Louis, Missouri. I am your host, Nikki Roach, and welcome to Conversations in the Nick of Time. I have had such an interesting week, and I'm hoping that you've had an excellent week. Those of you who are new to the show and new to the platform, here we talk all about leadership, and that's leadership excellence and leadership accidents. Both are quite needed. Can't have one without the other if you're talking about advancing and exceeding at what it is that you've been called to do. I am so grateful now that we can hop into this conversation with my beautiful guest. We have had a chance to cross paths here in the streets and the highways and byways of St. Louis, Missouri for years. And we have talked about coming together to kind of just brainstorm because I was just so elated to learn about all the great things she was doing, but also for a forgotten group from time to time. We forget this group in regards to the needs that they have after they have served. And yes, we're talking about the military, the veterans, but not only them, but also their families. And I'm just overwhelmed, overjoyed to have this beautiful being with me on this evening. Miss Darcella Craven, how are you?
I am doing well. Hi. I feel like I should like run down the aisle or something after that.
Okay, I'll have to get some theme music for you next time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm good. Just to let a few people know about the President and Chief Fear Conqueror. That is the title. Do you guys hear? Chief Fear Conqueror of the Veterans Business Resource Center. And she says, shoot for the moon, get the moon, and nothing else is acceptable. So do you see why I have this energy about her being on the show? Just absolutely amazing quote. And it says, since starting the center in 2006, Darcella has served all roles of the VBRC, including business counselor, outreach coordinator, presenter, and currently executive director. She is the head queen in charge. She has over 18 years of experience in operating nonprofits, corporate communications, government and military administration, and training. And then we have you here. I understand you are a phenom gardener. And I know you from crossing paths from Webster University. That's where we first began to engage.
Yes. So let's talk about the gardener thing real quick. Basically, I didn't want to have grass, so I was tired. Once my children had graduated from college and moved out, I didn't have any gardeners anymore. So I figured, I don't want to be the one pushing the lawnmower up and down the hill. So I started planting plants, and it has just grown into this small botanical garden. So I love it. It's a beautiful space to go sit in.
I follow you on Instagram, and you had posted, I think last year, This
Mhm.
pumpkin
Yes.
that was as big as the car I drive every day. What what was that?
You know, it was a volunteer pumpkin patch. I'm assuming a bird, dropped some pumpkin seeds along the way, and they just kind of grew all down the side of the house. It was a really great time because the kids in the neighborhood got to kind of wander through a pumpkin patch in their neighborhood. That's how I got rid of them all. I was actually letting the kids come in and snatch stuff, which helped me out and gave them some free pumpkins.
Well, speaking of snatching, you have managed to have such a diverse background, um, being a vet yourself,
Mhm.
which a lot of people are surprised to learn.
Go on.
Yeah, go Army, yes. So just let's start off with just kind of your journey and what has gotten you to this point, that like some highlights from your career.
Sure. Well, let's see. I grew up here in St. Louis, Missouri, actually over on the Grove. It wasn't so fancy back then in the 70s and 80s. It was kind of a little sketchy. Um, and sort of the highlights in 2000, well, no, not 2000, in 19, let's see, when I was 15, so that would have been around 85. My mom, who worked at the steel factory that's still over in that neighborhood, by the way, lost her fingers. And I had to start working full time or part time to try to help with pay the bills and go to school and help her change her bandages. So I became a nurse. She didn't have the insurance to have a in-home healthcare come, and go to school and try to do all the things that I was supposed to do as a good Lutheran girl. So I grew up in a Lutheran family. Went to church every Sunday and Wednesday, like you're supposed to. And back then, if you would have told me the sky was purple, I would have believed you. And I would have said, in a beautiful shade it is too. Thank you so much. I just kind of really did whatever people told me to do. And when I had to start working, it obviously changed. That was a pivotal moment of change in my life, because who else was going to do it? So I had to step up and kind of take care of my mom, who eventually, was able to recover and start working again, but never to the point where she, had both hands, obviously. I had a younger sister who was also struggling with that trauma. When I was 17, I graduated from high school, and my plan was to go to college and then, try to be a translator for the UN and have the white picket fence in the house and get a husband and the dog and, the thing you're supposed to do. At least that's how I was raised to think that's how you get out of my neighborhood. Well, my mom at 17 looked at me and said, "We don't have any money for you to go to college. You can't work at Hardee's the rest of your life. So I'm signing you up to the military." So my mom actually signed me up into the Army.
Your mom signed you. You had no choice.
It was not a choice. Now, she will tell you today that I had a choice, but I will tell you I did not, because I was 17. So she actually signed her parental rights to Uncle Sam, of me to Uncle Sam. And yeah, so I went into the military, and I went in there with the intention of sending money back to my mom so she could take care of my sister. And at the time, doing 3/4 of my tours so I could get my college money and get out. That was my plan. When I got into the military, I was mad. I was obviously mad because I didn't really want to be in the military in the first place. It was never a thing in my life. I spoke Spanish and French at the time, so I was going to be a translator, and that's how I was going to get out. Well, when I signed up, there was a recruiter who kept pushing me, and I said, "Well, I want to be a translator because I speak all these languages." And he said, "Well, you have to take this special test and you might fail." And that's the message he implanted in my head at 17, was that I could take this test, but I might fail.
Never an option. You could possibly like
No,
that.
nope. And so his thing was, you better sign up for something good or you're going to be a cook. So I signed up for the hardest thing I could at the time, which was combat communications. And it was in the 80s when they were first letting women really into those roles. So in 1988, November, I went into the military as a combat communications and radio repairman. It was a long title, but basically, if you've ever watched a war movie, the person with the radio on their back running, that was me. When I went in, again, I told you I went in mad. when I went to AIT, which is the training for that particular job, there were 500 people in the battery and 3 women. It was incredibly tough. The men there at the time, remember this is 1988, 1989, they didn't want a woman in there in the first place. And they certainly didn't want a 17-year-old woman in there. So I got called out quite a bit. They used to call me babyface because I was so young. And they made sure that they told me at every single moment that I wasn't supposed to be there. However, along the way, I did develop some really strong relationships with those guys. And eventually they learned to love me and, and accept me as a part of their unit. But I want to back up real quick. My mom was a tough woman. She used to put us outside when we were younger and tell us that we couldn't come back out inside until we no longer thought it was cold. So we were outside playing in the cold forever. So we learned to be conditioned to things and spaces. And in her mind, she was building us up to accept a world that was going to treat us poorly because my mom is white and my dad was Black and she was raising these multiracial kids. So in her mind, she was building us up, and she couldn't possibly have known how that would help me through my life. So I'm gonna fast forward a little bit just to tell you, in basic training, I told you I was really mad. And so they would say, well, we're not gonna go inside until Babyface thinks it's cold. And we're standing outside in Fort Jackson, South Carolina in the winter, it is cold. And they would put us in, right. Right, yeah. So this was the military, and they would put us in shorts and t-shirts, and they would say, we can't go in until Babyface no longer thinks it's cold. And I would look at them and go, well, I guess we'll be standing out here for a while because, I mean, my mom taught me how to deal. But what that did for me, Nikki, is after a while, I realized that, first of all, I lasted everybody, even the drill sergeants. I'm like, we're going to sit out here for a long time. And even the drill sergeants would get mad and finally just go inside, and I end up doing push-ups or whatever other punishment. But what it taught me was that my actions had consequences, not just for me, but for everyone else. So that's when I really started to learn kind of different lessons about things in life and leadership. Kind of fast forward, I went through the military. About half of it, I was really, really, really mad, but I was really good at it. And mostly I was good at it because my motivation was so negative. Like, I was not here to prove that I was good for myself. I was here to prove that I was good for every man who told me I couldn't be there. I had a lot of really amazing people in the military who would tell me, you know, again, by this time I'm like 18, 19, 20, and of course, you know everything when you're 18, 19, 20. And I would have these men would say, you know, you're really good at this thing. If you would stop being so angry all the time, you could actually do well. Well, it took me about 3.5, almost 4 years of that anger to realize that they were right. So lots of.
Why so long, do you think?
Oh, I just was angry. I was angry at my situation. I really was allowing life to happen to me, and I wasn't in charge of my own life. It was everybody else's fault. You know, the negative mindset was there. Along the way, I had 2 children in the military, and I ended up with being a single mom. And I looked at my kids about 5 years into the military. I looked at my kids and thought, I want to try to be a better mom than what I was being, because I really loved the military, and I was going out to the field a lot, and I was sending them off to babysitters a lot, and you know, I just wasn't raising my children. So I got out. Unfortunately, I got out of the military in 93 full time. I stayed in until 96 for the reserves, but I got out of 93 with no real plan. I just kind of stumbled out of the military, came back here to St. Louis. I had the same high school education that I went in with, and now 2 kids. So I came back mad. I circled back around to being mad again. And I will say I never really got out of being mad, but I came back to being mad, and I came back to St. Louis, and I walked into a job training partnership, you know, kind of unemployment office. And I was literally yelling at this poor receptionist about how they owed me something. You owe me this, you owe me that. I was in the military, where's my job? You know, I had an attitude that you would not believe. And this man named William Hale walks out from behind the door, and he says, "Hey, soldier." He kind of like yells at me. And I turn around like, finally, someone gets it. And he said, "Do you want to know what you get for being in the military in this office?" I said, "Well, yeah, tell me, finally, somebody with some appreciation." And he looked at me, he said, "To the front of the line." like, okay, I'll take that. I went into his office and I started going off on him and everybody in the office and how they owed me everything. And all the people in the military in there had been in the military. They were just laughing at me. Here I am, this 23-year-old full of vigor, blah, blah, blah. You're going to give me this.
Mad.
Absolutely. And he said to me, one of the first things that started to turn my life around, he said, when you're finished, let me know and we'll start planning out the rest of your life. But I'm going to let you go ahead and get all that out of you. So, you don't know me. I mean, I just met this man. You can't talk to me like that. And he looked at me and said, well, I just did. So this man actually helped me create a plan to go to school so that I could, take care of my kids. I had fallen into the welfare system. So he helped me understand that if I would go to school, go ahead.
In the military, you come out of the military, come back to St. Louis, you go to seek out some help. You get someone to help write a plan.
Right.
But you just mentioned you still fell into welfare.
Yeah, I was on welfare, by the way, in the military. So let's make sure it's clear. Military folks don't get paid that much, and especially don't get paid a whole lot of money when they have children. And as a single mom, I was on WIC and everything while I was in the military.
Wow.
Kind of one of the reasons why I thought I could, that's one of the reasons why I was like, well, let me get out. I can't do any worse being out. So at the time, I went to Sanford Brown College.
I remember.
It was up there in Hazelwood, right off of 270. I had a little bitty car. I had a 1992 Geo Metro. And he took me up there. I enrolled in school to be a secretary or something. I don't even know what it was anymore. And I met this woman named Pat Pugh. And the reason why I'm telling you these names is because these men and women are the people who impact and change the trajectory of my life. So Pat Pugh said to me, realize that if you make a certain amount of money, you can get off of welfare, but still keep the food stamps and the healthcare for your kids. So she helped me create a plan of getting a part-time job that was $6 an hour for 20 hours a week. And that was enough to get me off the money, get me more money in my house, but also keep my kids on medical, because I couldn't afford that. Then she helped me figure out how to find internships that would pay me to do that. My first internship was down at the Keel Center, which is now Enterprise Center. I know. This woman named Jan Carlock, who was the secretary to the president, which, by the way, they didn't even have a president back then. She was actually running the whole thing and nobody knew it. I went in there with my little U-Man outfit on. I was really cute. I had a cream colored outfit with my little stirrup pants. I was adorable. And I went in there and Jan pulled me to the side and she said, oh, Darcella, you look so adorable today. I said, well, thank you. She said, yeah, if you were going to the club. I was like, what? She said, if you want to ever get anywhere in life, in this business, you have got to look like the people you're trying to be, not the person you are. I was like,
see, I'm following you through this whole journey because there are so many nuggets and I want you to share, but I'm like, oh, whoa. But this one right here,
yes.
I always say, dress for where you're going, not for where you are.
Oh yeah. So, and then she told me to get behind the desk and not come out to the rest of the day and never show up in her office like that again if she wanted me to be serious. And so I went out and found the one little dress suit that I could find. And I just kept changing the shirts underneath, and I had the same pair of black pants and the same black skirt and the same jacket, but different shirts underneath and different little fake jewelry. So that and she was right. People started addressing me differently. They started behaving towards me differently. I started behaving differently. I took the job seriously.
I'm telling you, it matters. That's why even with us being in the house and there's so much WFH, work from home, and now they have t-shirts and I just bought some socks.
Right.
But I'm like, no, get up and put on some lipstick, comb your hair, put on some clothes, at least from the waist up, right?
At least from the waist. Well, today I got my Cardinals on because I was waiting for them to win, but unfortunately, a little setback. But that's okay. They're gonna do well. So she helped me really start to become professional and start looking at the business space about where I wanted to be. Then my next job, so that job only lasted for about 5 months. And then my next job in that same, while I was still going to school at Sanford Brown, my next job was this law firm out in ENCORE. Again, I'm on a bus doing all this, by the way, and I lived out in North County. So I would take the bus over to Sanford Brown College, then I would take the bus either down to the Kiel Center or over to ENCORE. And so I'm in there, and by this time I'm starting to get a little different, you know, feeling a little bit better about myself, thinking about the future, trying to plan out stuff. Pat Pugh is still talking to me, trying to help me understand like where my life can be. And I'm in this office, and this office manager says to me, she happened to be the wife of the attorney. So she was the office manager, and I'm not going to say her name because she's still around, and although I should. So I was at the coffee pot, and she said to me, "Oh, Darcella, so what are you going to be after you graduate from Sanford Brown?" And she said it with the most disdain she could possibly say. And I said, "Well, you know, I think I want to get my master's degree, and I think I want to maybe go into business, and you know, maybe be an office manager one day." And she looked at me with all seriousness, and she said, "How cute, Darcella. Maybe one of these days you're going to take off those rose-colored glasses you have on and learn to deal with the station in life that you were given." Wow. That's what that woman said to me. Now, I got to tell you, I had a coffee pot in my hand. I was like, "Ooh, Lord, help me not kill this woman in here. There's too many lawyers in this room," right? I mean, that was her message to me was I was never going to be better than what I was. And I was like, "Oh, okay." Now, I went back and told Pat that, and I was so angry. And Pat said, "Well, you know, is she right? Are you gonna accept that?" So I started making another plan. I enrolled in Webster University. I transferred my credits over from Sanford Brown into Webster. This was back in the 90s. I was able to go into a bachelor's degree, and I was going to be a Spanish teacher, and I was going to do all these great, wonderful things because I was back into because I still spoke Spanish, French, and German at the time. And I'm going away in school, and I'm doing the things you're supposed to do. I'm taking the bus, I'm dropping off my kids, I'm doing all this stuff. And this woman named Madeline Maxwell called me into her office. She was my advisor. Do you know Madeline?
Yes.
Yeah. So Madeline Maxwell, who said to me, "I'm sorry, Darcella, there is no Spanish degree in the evening. The woman who got you enrolled into that program did not know that. And so we need to figure out what else we're going to do." I went off on Madeline. I went off on her like she had just stolen something from me. "How dare you people, you this and you that and Webster this," and just going off. And she looked at me, and you remember Madeline, she used to wear her glasses like this.
And very mild manners.
And she would look at you. And she did that, and she said, "Young lady, when you're finished doing all that, you let me know." She said, "Because I'm going to tell you something in life. If you always let somebody else do something for you, then you will always get what they give you." And I was like, "You can't talk to me like that. You see, this is a theme in my life." Right? And she looked at me and she said, "Well, I just did. And didn't nobody stop me?" And let me tell you, Nikki, what she said was, "I just did, and nobody stopped me, not even you." Boom. I mean, this woman just like, again, changed the way I thought about. I thought I was doing something, but I really wasn't. I was still just moving. I wasn't really
working. And then this approach that you had, which was explode.
Right, yeah.
Be heard, but everybody we're going to let you perform. But when you're done, you
right. Figure this out. Right. So this woman, God bless her, sat there with me. I had my 2 kids out in the hallway. She sat there with me for 2.5 hours and showed me how to manage my own schedule to fit it into working part-time, plus taking care of my kids, helped me figure out how to work full-time. She even helped me with that whole plan. This woman was there for 2.5 hours. She didn't have to do this. It wasn't her job. And she said to me when I was done, she said, "You understand that Webster has this new program. It's a bachelor's and a master's degree. Would you like to enroll?" And I was sitting there kind of going, "Well, I don't know." She said, "Oh, honey, that was a rhetorical question." So this woman enrolled me and showed me how to do this and enrolled me into this program.
So again, with someone giving you no No option. They're just telling you how this is going down.
Here's your direction. And she showed me how it could look. And so I tell you that because I went from having a high school education to a master's degree in 4 years while raising 2 kids and taking the bus, because along the way, I've got my car repossessed. I had all of these other like massive financial things that happen. But here's what I will tell you. When I got my car repossessed and I used to have to take the bus, I lived in St. Anne, so I would take the bus from Crosswinds Apartments, which is no longer there. It's a parking lot now. We'd walk up to the top by the airport to catch the bus. We'd get on that bus. It would swing us around the International Plaza Drive. I would get off there, run my kids to the KinderCare, and then I would run back down to catch the bus as it swung around Northwest Plaza to go to my school. So to that point, here's what I will tell you about leadership. You talked earlier about kind of accidentally falling into it. One of the things I learned during that process is that nothing I do in my life, I'm doing alone. Wow. That there are people, divinely placed people in my life constantly telling me, go left or go right, and showing me the way. But there have been times when I just haven't listened to them. Like,
so, and even now, like looking back,
absolutely.
What would you have told yourself even towards the end of that degree process?
So when I was running, so when I would run from the bus, with the little stroller and the kids up to KinderCare, the woman at the KinderCare was not supposed to allow me to do this, but she would let me leave all of my kids' stuff, including the stroller there. She would hide it underneath her desk. Wow. And that was against the rules. You weren't supposed to do that. Then I would take off running, and they would sometimes meet me at the corner. Like sometimes if they knew I was late, they would meet me at the corner. Then I would take off running to catch that bus. And they used to go around Northwest Plaza. The bus driver would purposely catch every light so he would be slow. And if he wasn't driving, the people on the bus would tell the new substitute driver, hold up. In about 2 seconds, there's going to be a young woman running down this alley. So I would run down the alley between wherever that street is. I can't remember. In St. Charles Rock Road, there's a house and a gas station. I would run down that alley. And so the people on the bus would tell that person to stop and wait. No, just give her a minute. She's coming. Right. So there are people in my life who helped me do better.
But they helped you because they saw that you wanted it.
Right.
You just didn't know how to go about doing it.
Right. And those are people, those are whatever you want to call them, angels, you want to call them just whatever you want to call them, just people who saw a young woman trying to do better and helped. What if those people wouldn't have helped? What if they would have been like, listen, I got to get to work. I don't have time to be waiting for you. Right. So that's how I have tried to manage my leadership style as I have helped mentor young people, as I look at folks, as I give them the leave to scream and yell.
and when they're done.
And when you're done. Now that I have glasses, I can go in when you're done. And I give them the opportunity to, so I'll tell everybody who I mentor, you have 15 minutes of wine time with me. So you can whine for 15 minutes, but that's through the whole time you know me. Oh. So I want to parse that out. And that's how I run my life. That's how I run my own leadership now, is giving people the opportunity to express however they need to express. And then let's figure out how to make this happen.
What do you think at this point, it's still something that you're buckling your knees at? It's causing you to buckle your knees, meaning still an area of work that I have, because this journey that you have shared is, I knew none of this. That's why I'm so quiet, because I just want to take it all in, because there's so many lessons all the way through. Yeah. And some are reoccurring, but there's a strong message at each phase of life that you've shared. But yet now you find yourself in a different space.
Right.
You're pouring into other people. But what is it that you're still like, okay, here's an area I'm still working on?
Yeah, okay. So when I along the way, there was a woman named Dolores Foster who every time I would get downsized out of that nice corporate job that I finally ended up in, every time I would get downsized, I would go and show up at the Urban League and I would help her and volunteer with her. And one day she sent my resume over to this nonprofit and said, this young lady just graduated from school. She has absolutely no experience in running a nonprofit, but here's what she did for me. So she wrote a beautiful cover letter and they interviewed me and hired me based off her cover letter, not because I went in there and wowed them. I had no idea what a nonprofit even was at the time. So, so again, all these people kept coming in. Along the way, I fell into entrepreneurship of my own, started my own small company. And another woman said to me in one meeting, she said, you know, there's this guy who started this organization called the Veterans Business Resource Center, and he needs a consultant. Would you just go over and talk to him about maybe doing some contract work with him? I went over, I messed up the first interview because I didn't even show up. Because, you know, I was thinking that it was a contract. So I was, you know, oh, I'll call him back later. I showed up the next time. We got to talking. And the next thing you know, he asked me if I wanted a job. He said, will you shut down your company and come work for me? I was like, okay, yeah, no problem. I'll do that. This sounds like fun because I wanted to go back to school and do all these other things. So anyways, at the end of the day, he eventually ended up leaving the organization. And he has since passed away. But when he quit, he literally just walked into the office one day and quit. He said, and oh, by the way, I told the board they should hire you. So let me tell you something. I was supposed to do this company for a little bit of time, get my degree and leave. Like I was going to get my PhD and be gone. I wasn't trying to still be here. But he walked in and he said, yeah, I told him in my letter that they should hire you because I think you're the next director. And that's how I became the director. So the board did hire me. I mean, they did the interview and they were like, well, okay, I guess we're going to hire you. To your question, what scares me is that was the succession plan. It was literally, he quit, you're now in charge. Right, figure it out. And oh, by the way, there were some people on that original board that didn't want me to succeed. I had a board member come in and tell me, and this is, none of the board members exist now, but this particular one, and this was like 12, 13 years ago, he said to me, you know, we're having a little trouble with hiring you because, well, you know, some of the board members are afraid you're going to turn this into a social services organization because, you know, you're a woman and Black.
That was about to be my next question.
That's what the man said to me. He said it out of his mouth.
The structure of the business, it has evolved.
Yes.
Even back in the day when I learned that you were a part of it,
mm-hmm.
And I think this was before transitioning into leadership, it's kind of like that's not a place where a person of color would feel comfortable going to get service. Yet we needed what they had.
Right. So I looked at him and he was rightfully embarrassed. He was as red as you can be. And I looked at him and I said, so let me ask you a question. Who set this place up? He said, well, you know, all these people on this round table. I said, are they all, you know, and is it free? Everything is free in here? He said, yes. I said, you won't allow me to charge for anything? He said, no, we want to keep it absolutely free. Everything's free for the veterans and military families. And I was like, are there any women or Black people on that board? And he looked at me, he said, no. I said, so who set this place up like a social services organization? And he looked at me and he said, touche, Darcella. So he then became my biggest champion. And he really helped me to turn over the board and get new, fresh people in who really wanted to see the organization grow. So we are headquartered here in St. Louis, and we now take care of all of Missouri, Kansas, Iowa, Nebraska, and Southern Illinois.
And that's, repeat that, because a lot of people will think that this is a service, it's headquartered in St. Louis, Missouri, but you are serving where?
We serve the entire state of Missouri, Iowa, Kansas, Nebraska, and we do Southern Illinois, about an hour and a half from the border. We are now part of an organization of 21 other centers. We were the first one in the country to get up and running. I was the first African-American woman to run one of these. I was the first woman to run one of these. We now have more women and more diversity. So I'm pretty excited. And there are now 21 other centers that are very similar to ours. They do a few different things, but basically all of us help veterans and military families with startup and expansion of small business, as well as transitioning military and National Guard and reservists.
Wonderful. I know there was an article that I was reading out of the New York Times, and it's titled "Veterans Are Working, but Not in Jobs That Match Their Advanced Training." It was written March 7th of this year.
Mm-hmm.
But the author is Jennifer Steinhauer, and she's a reporter for New York Times since 1994. And it goes on to read, like most Americans, veterans have benefited from a robust labor market, but skills learned in combat do not always translate to private sector jobs.
Right.
Unemployment is one of the greatest issues faced by returning veterans and by their spouses, who often lose ground through constant relocations. Veterans are 37% more likely to be underemployed than non-veterans, and this is according to a study conducted by LinkedIn. And then about 55% of vets in transition want to do something totally different than what they did in the military. According to Indeed, the unemployment rate for military spouses is 24%, in large part because of frequent relocations and the inability of transferring occupational, even their licenses, because they're moving from state to state.
Yeah. So no, absolutely. And those were all true pre-COVID, and they're even worse during COVID and will be worse post-COVID. The interesting part is there are some states, Missouri is one of them, that now do reciprocal licensing for military spouses.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that just happened this year. And it's specific. It's like nursing and I think teachers. You'd have to look it up, and I'd have to send you later on the link to it. So at least there's that. There are some reciprocal licensings for military, like if you're a truck driver or something. But I'm going to go back to the part where I didn't want to do communications when I got out. I had just done that. And let me just back up for military folks. So I told you I went in as combat communications. Well, I went in during the Cold War, before there was any kind of conflict. I was in during the first Desert Storm. I was in during Kosovo, Rwanda, Somalia deployment, and I got out completely in 1996. So I was luckily and fortunate enough not to actually deploy, even though I was on the list to deploy. But fortunately, my unit either came back or my daughters were not old enough for me to deploy. So I just want you to know that during the first Gulf War, women who had children had 42 days and they had to go to war. So you had to do something with your kids. Luckily, my unit came back right as my daughter was about to hit that 42 days. And then they changed it to 4 months after that because so many people complained. And again, luckily, I didn't go to Rwanda because my daughter was 2 weeks. I had 2 weeks before I would have had to go. So luckily they came back. I'm very fortunate that I did not have to actually go to combat. But I will tell you the mindset that I had when I was younger, I wanted to go to combat. I thought I had to prove something. Can you imagine the mindset of a young person who was like, no, send me to war? Like it's crazy to think about today that's where I was in my teens and 20s. But the men and women who are in the military now, my niece just went to the Navy, so I don't know where I went wrong that she went to the Navy, but no, I'm proud of her stepping up and doing that. But when you're in, so I started off as combat communications. When I was in Germany, that's what I did. I was out in the field. I was doing all these great things. I was G.I. Jane before that movie existed. Then I came to Colorado, but they didn't need my job. No unit needed another combat communications person. So they stuck me into the S23 security office. So I literally started doing in and out processing. I didn't know anything about that. Here you go, here's your SOP. Tomorrow you show up, you're doing in and out processing. So I did that for a long time. And then a new sergeant major came in and he needed an assistant. And I was the only person that didn't have a job slot. So you're now the assistant to the sergeant major and the captain. So I didn't know anything about being a secretary, but I figured it out. And when they went to Kosovo, they needed a training NCO, and they were like, "Hey, we need a training person. That's you." And so I became a training person. So, how do you put that on a resume?
And then for someone to be able to say, okay, this makes sense. I see how you, because in standard society,
Mm-hmm.
a progression. We want to see that you work towards something, and there should be a common theme
Right.
throughout your resume.
Right.
So they take you serious.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Something that we will say, like even on the HR, those who hire individuals, oh, look at all this inconsistency in their career. They're not sure what they want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a challenge. Now the military is doing better at making sure that folks have training, and they're doing much better at transitioning people out, but it's still a long, long way to go. And military spouses are worse.
Right. And so then now we're at Veterans Business Resource Center. And what happens in the space?
Yeah. So I will just say before we end the note about military spouses, there are actually companies here in St. Louis that focus on military spouses and employment. So I'll make sure I send you that as well, because there are people, and St. Louis is leading the way across the country in helping the military, by the way, just saying.
Oh,
my gosh. So what's happening at Veterans Business Resource Center? So our job is to help a transitioning military member or a veteran who is either trying to start a business or military spouse, or who is in business and maybe they want to grow. We're traditional business consultants. So we will help you with ideation. You think you want to be a, I don't know, TV repairman today, but tomorrow you might want to own a food truck. We kind of help guide people through that process. I focus on the why, because that's what I think is missing a lot in entrepreneurs, is they don't comprehend why they're doing what they're doing. And so they easily get off track. That comes from those men and women who helped me along my way. So I get to do the same thing back to someone else. Like, go ahead, let me know when you're done, right? So yeah, so that's what we do, traditional business consulting. We make sure you get the right resource, the right information, the right time.
And then it is a one-stop shop, to my understanding, those who are transitioning. And there's like a 4 or 5 phase process that individuals can go through?
Right. Well, that comes from my military background, right? An old commo person, right? If it goes left and it doesn't work, then take it right, right? That's how we do schematics. So the phases really is a way for us to assess where you are in the process. Some people come in the door and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm ready to go." I'm like, "Okay, great. Do you have this? Is your credit good? Do you have the play?" No, I don't have any of that. I just want to do it. So the phase process helps us to get them in according to where they are, so we can help move them to where they want to go.
And so there is the business idea quiz.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that you do. And I think that is pretty cool, because it helps, you're right, even people who are not veterans need help with that ideation process to understand, like, look, because some of us are like, "Oh, hey, how you doing? This is what I want to do. Oh, there's a squirrel. Did you see that?" Like, we're all over the place. It's like, bring it in.
Right.
So it's good. And then to have an outside person who to try to interpret what it is that you're communicating, because it's for other people. And if they don't understand it, then you can't move forward with it.
Right. No, absolutely.
I love that you start with that. And then there's the counseling that you also have. You have free online training. You have Boots to Business program. What would you say is one thing that individuals who are coming to seek out service and help, what do they need to tighten up on in regards to preparing before they come visit you?
Okay, so this actually ties into the question you asked me before about what is it that still trips me up. I still see a lot of this in the military is because we don't understand the language sometimes.
And what language is that?
The language from the military. So I'll give you an example. if you tell me to go do something, go move that log across the street and tie it to the other tree. If I'm in the military, I might look at you and go, oh, cool, too easy, right? And you might hear, I need to make it harder, right? You just told me that moving that log was too easy. Okay, well, let me give you something else. What a military person is really saying is, absolutely no problem, I will make it happen. And if I need you to give me something else, I'll come back and ask you. That's what that means. But you as a civilian don't hear that. So when military people come out, they don't understand the language that they use. Yeah. So we've got to help them understand the language. Also, when I'm in the military, if I walk up on you and you walk up on me, I can tell immediately who salutes who is in charge. A sergeant is a sergeant is a sergeant. I can pick a sergeant up from Colorado and put that sergeant in Germany, and they're going to do sergeant stuff, right? Now, that has nothing to do with the individual person. I'm just saying the job is the same job no matter where you go. So when you come out of the military, you're like, okay, well, if I'm the sergeant, who's the captain? How do we, how does this work? You don't really know all that stuff. So one of the things the military does try to do is help translate that information out. There's still a long way to go. And how that trips me up is that as I am growing this organization, I just hired in some new people. They're the new blood. They're taking off and taking the organization in ways I hadn't even thought about taking it. And so what's my next role? Like, oh my God, I gotta, what do I do? What's the president do? So what still trips me up sometimes is the language. I have to learn a new language of being a president and fundraising and all this other stuff that it's a little scary still.
Interesting. What would you say to employers, human resource reps, and hiring managers, even business partners or banks and lenders, all those different people who are on the civilian side? What message would you give to them as they work with individuals who you're coaching? Some you'll be coaching, because many of us have dual roles, meaning we are an employer and we have a company. It's just the sign of the times these days. What message would you have for them?
Whew, okay, so let me talk to the military person, and quite frankly, anybody. So here's one of the things I will tell folks to do is take out a piece of paper or write it on a computer if you want to go be all fancy, but write down your KSAs. What is your knowledge? What are your skills? And what are your abilities? Your knowledge is anything that someone gave you a piece of paper. If they gave you a piece of paper and said, you now have it, formal knowledge, I don't care what that piece of paper is, certificate of something or a master's degree, whatever it is, write that down. Write down your skills. And so your skills are the things that you learned. So after you got that piece of paper and they told you you were the best wrench turner in the world, and you went out and tried to turn the wrench the way they taught you, you had to learn that, oh no, here in this shop, we have to turn it to the left, and in the other shop, we turn it to the right. So those are skills that you learn how to actually implement the stuff that you know. And then your abilities are those things that people say to you they could never do. Like, oh, Nikki, girl, I don't know how you ever do that. Those are those innate things that just seem to come to you easier than anybody else. So write those 3 things down. Then I want you to pick one person you love and who loves you, and one person that you like, and you'll be okay with that person if they show up at Thanksgiving dinner, but you don't want them staying past 10. Like after dessert, you got to go, right? And ask those 2 people to do the same thing for you. You'll be surprised at what people believe about you that you completely skip over because you're so busy running that you forget.
And it is good to do that more than once.
Yes, do it constantly. So that's what I tell the people who are trying to start a small business, because that's going to do a couple of things. One, it's going to help you understand your strength areas and your areas of opportunity. And it's also going to help you understand who you need to bring into your team, because you don't have to be all things to all people for all the time. You can just bring in a team member.
Exactly.
Right. So that's what I would tell the military person. If you're going for a career or if you're going for your small business, do that. If you don't know that, then you are halfway doing your job. You're halfway doing your company. We get a lot of men and women that come in there because they just can't find a good job. And they think starting a small business is what they want to do. And really what they're doing is they're creating a job for themselves, which I tell anybody, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, don't create a job for yourself. If you want a job, just go find a job. Because being an entrepreneur is a whole different ball of wax.
And it is It's more taxing than people think it is.
Absolutely. And nobody does it by themselves. Nobody. I don't care what the book says. Nobody does it by themselves. So that's the other thing. For the civilian side, for the employers, as I have to hire when I'm looking at resumes for my, fellow veterans, I still see the same mistakes. They put on there, I am Superman or Superwoman. You should hire me. I can do your receptionist job. And I'm like, you fix, airplanes, man. Well, I can't use you for this role. Is I will tell the folks, do two things. One, if you're going to say thank you to somebody who's in the military, really mean it. Don't just say, oh, thank you for your service, and it's just sort of like this placating thing. If you are in a position of power, say, thank you for your service. How can I help you do better or advance? If you have a skill set like resume writing, offer to help them take a look at their resume, because it's a scary thing to send your resume out there and not figure out why no one, hell, you don't have to have been in the military for that. Everybody knows that. But on the civilian side, if you're a hiring manager, take a moment to actually, and you got to figure out the legalities of this, but take a moment to actually try to see if you can get an MOS guide and see what it is that they've written, so that you can find, because the MOS guide will tell you actually all the things this person did, and it might not be translating well on the
break down MOS guide.
It's military occupation specialty. That's what they call in the military, in the Army. It's called other things. Basically, it's the job. What's the job that they did? Because there are skill sets in there that the military person doesn't know to put on that resume.
Understood. For civilian facing.
Yeah. Okay. So just take some time and then actually spend some time talking to the transition managers of all the military posts around you, if you're interested in working with military folks. Go to a networking event, talk to the people in the room, get to understand their language so that you can help translate it for yourself. Join the U.S. Veterans Group or some veterans group on LinkedIn. Have a dialogue and a conversation with those people. It will really be helpful.
Wonderful. Now, I know you're located in downtown St. Louis, your headquarters, 911 Washington Avenue in the T-Rex, Suite 705. And those who are needing more information and you want to go poke around, you can go to vetbiz.com. Mm-hmm. And you can find more information. You can find the number. You can find out information. Even those of us who just want to donate. And donate doesn't always mean monetary. It could be that you have an opportunity to sit with someone or to come and share. I know you do a number of things for your clients and the vets and their family members. When it comes to social matters, networking, thought exchange, group exchange, that kind of stuff, even virtually. Right. So I want you all to make sure that you go over to the website. I will make sure we post that link again in regards to the website. There is so much that this organization is offering for free for vets. As we wrap up our time together, it always is never enough time to dig in, but this has been phenomenal. Absolutely amazing journey you've had, but I want you at this point to share with us one message that you would share to encourage vets who are in that transition process. You have a platform now to tell vets all over the world one message in the nick of time to give them encouragement to keep going. What would that be?
Okay, so wow, there's so many things. I would say I end every conversation that I have with make it a powerful day. The reason why I say make it a powerful day is because you control the way this thing works. It is easier said than done, but if you say it enough time, it becomes a part of who you are. So I would say figure out what your motto is. You at the beginning, you said, shoot for the moon, get the moon, nothing else is acceptable. That's our family motto. My kids will tell you that. It's on my checks. It's everywhere, because sometimes you've got to continue to tell yourself the positive thing to eliminate the negative that was placed into your head. And quite frankly, folks, if you can make it through basic training, you can do any of this.
Wow, Darcella Craven, thank you so much for giving us your heart, your ear, your voice, and your passion behind the work. It is obvious that you have truly been called to do the work. But I love the fact that you're not only called, but I mean, you literally have laid out the framework that you were not here or born to do anything else from 17 all the way to now. And I know it's just going to begin. I love how you're, yes, headquartered here, but you have reached outside of St. Louis, and I am just applauding you, applauding the team for all the great work you're doing. Again, as I mentioned, a group that is often sometimes forgot after being celebrated when they really do need the help. And I just want to thank you. Those who want to also be a blessing to this organization, again, we will post the information, but you can go to vetbiz.com, that's vetbiz.com, and get more information on how you can even just show them some love.
Yeah, you can volunteer. We love volunteers. Nikki, I want to thank you so much for giving us this opportunity. As much as I love what I have done with the organization over the last 15 years, this new team that I have, boy, I tell you what, I hope to do them a service by training them and leading them, because I got to tell you, they're going to make it even more amazing. I'm really happy with their energy and their enthusiasm too. So thank you. I appreciate you. You will let me come on and give them a little love too.
Yes, and just looking forward to even better things. And the next time you come around, who knows, you may be taking over the whole Western.
Right, taking over the
United States. But anytime you have something coming up and there's an announcement or something that we can help with you, backing you and the organization and the team, do not hesitate to reach out. We are a platform for you, okay?
Thank you so much, and make it a powerful day.
Yes. I'm going for the moon, Want to say thank you to all of you who are listening to Conversations in the Nick of Time. Thanks to Sparkman, Pathway to Careers, and KSTL 690 AM for being the power behind this platform. Don't forget, you can check us out on the air, live on the air, a replay, ENCORE, on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday. If you are interested in being a guest and you want to learn more, visit NikkiRoach.com, NikkiRoach.com. And as always, remember, you already possess everything you need to be successful. That's success as you define it. Open your hand, heart, and head, and go for what it is that you want. Go get your stuff. I'm your host, Nikki Roach, and go and be great. And again, thank you. This has been another Conversation in the Nick of Time.